So I was rewatching Hunter x Hunter, and when I got to the York New City arc, I felt really inspired to make a video. The scene where Chrollo was conducting Uvogin's Requiem really catches my attention every time I see it, and I felt obligated to remake it in live action. However, this seems like a very daunting task because for one, I don't live in a high-rise, and two, I'm sadly unable to use or understand Nen. No, seriously, can anyone explain it to me? Because I feel like I need a 4-year degree, 50 extra IQ points, and an explanation from Togashi himself to even come close to understanding the system. But I'll be fine because I like to make cool action videos inspired by anime. Moving on, the first thing I needed to do in order to get started was make a storyboard for the video. So after using my Nen ability of complex thought, I had a basic concept for the video. So we'll start with a panning shot of Chrollo from the back, while the indoor fish swim around the scene. Nearing the end of the shot, Chrollo will say,
"Personally, I believe we have a soul."
And it would then transition to the next scene where the camera's outside the building in midair, looking through the glass at Chrollo. The next important story point I wanted to hit was a shot of the window going down. That essentially releases the Nenfish and brings a lot of wind and turbulence into the scene. Chrollo would then close his book and it would just disappear forever. I don't really know where it goes. He has it in the last shot but it's gone in the next. So either he made out a Nen or he... The last shot on my storyboard is a profile shot of Chrollo as he looks out the window, all cool like, you know, with the wind blowing in his hair and the city in the background. And now that we have our guideline for the video, the next step is to abandon all of it, shoot it completely differently, and add a stupid number of shots to it. So in order to start filming, I would need a Chrollo cosplay, which was pretty simple since he just wears a suit and a tie with a head wrap, but there were two small problems. One, I needed to make Bandit's Secret, which is Chrollo's book, and two, his earrings. And due to the earrings reflecting their environment, I decided to just go the CG route instead of buying some. I just love adding more work for myself in post-production. It makes everything go so smoothly. Also, I don't have any footage of the bookmaking process, but this is how it turned out. Now, I have to transform myself into Chrollo, and with that being said, it's Morbin time. Okay, so for the shoot, I need to set up the camera and I need to use a leaf blower to get the illusion of wind on a high-rise building. And since I can't do all that on my own, my friend Kai came over to help me out with those things. There's really no shortage of weird things that happen on set. And speaking of the footage, in the profile shot, I was supposed to say,
"See, that's the reason I wanted to fulfill my dead friend's wish."
However, my lips didn't exactly match the words, especially on the word fulfill. So I spent a lot of time and effort stealing my own lips. I had to mask them and track them back onto my face with the perfect timing. Any mistakes would essentially break the illusion of the sentence, and the best part of this process was that my entire body was completely blurred when I was saying that. So yeah, okay, moving on. One of the first things I wanted to focus on was getting my whole scene built. I'm not particularly skilled at any modeling or texturing, but I had a vision for what I wanted the scene to look like, and have at least enough experience to create it like how I imagined. The whole environment takes a lot of inspiration from the original scene, but I was able to take a lot of creative liberties with how I wanted it to look. For an extra element in the scene, I decided to add a helicopter that would get shot down and eventually cross the window at the perfect moment in order to make for a really dramatic composition. In order to accomplish this, I had to make a missile hit the helicopter in one shot, and in another 2 shots I had to show it losing control in a blaze of fire and smoke. This introduced a lot of issues because smoke requires a lot of power and time to render. Not to mention how difficult the simulation processes were. However, I tried to match the inside of the room as best as possible to the original shot. One extra detail I added though was the bloody scarlet eyes of the Kuruta clan, of which Kurapika belongs to, in the corner over here. A huge part of getting the room to look realistic in the shots was nailing the glass texture. It wasn't as simple as throwing on a shader or animating any paths. Even though computers can calculate geometry and materials that are absolutely perfect, nothing in real life is 100% perfect, so I made sure that the glass was very blemished. I covered it with hundreds of small smudges and scratches, and these things bring life to CG when it would otherwise be too smooth or perfect for the real world. I want to circle back to the actual footage that I filmed. The main important parts were rotoscoping and keying the footage, and then adding the hair simulations and the earrings. Trying to recreate Chrollo's hair in 3D wasn't very difficult, but in order to get realistic movement with the amount of wind, I had to make some creative choices because anime hair can't always 100% translate into real life. But I believe I got it very close. After getting the look and density of the hair, the next part was getting the perfect amount of wind and turbulence for it. I want to specifically talk about one of the last shots, where the hair perfectly bounces and floats up when the helicopter passes by. For the actual environment, I added an extra orange light from when the helicopter exploded, so it was essentially a fake firelight. At first it was supposed to be temporary, but I really liked what it did to my scene, so I kept it for the rest of the video. This just goes to show that sometimes random ideas do work, and they can add a lot of value to your work. So just always try to be creative with your problem solving, and don't be afraid to try new things and take risks. And the best part about this light is the perfect glow that it creates in the hair simulation. And when everything is joined, it really glues the whole shot together, but you'll see that later. So for the last shot, I made myself look more like Chrollo because the face was very visible, and I used Absinthe to track the paint over back onto my face. This whole scene has a lot of moving parts, and I wanted to touch on one of my favorite of those, which are the Nen fish, or indoor fish, whatever you want to call them. These fish were a big part of why I chose the scene because I was really interested in them and I thought the concept was super cool. But when it came to modeling the fish, I had almost no experience. The main challenge was getting the proportions and the actual shape of the fish right. But once I was able to achieve this look, I moved on to texturing things like the skin, the fins, and the eyes. I had a lot of work to do in this part, because in order to achieve a realistic look, I had to add certain details that weren't in the actual scene itself. And as I said before, in CG, things can start to look fake if they're too smooth or too perfect. So I started by adding a lot of surface imperfections, such as scratches and bumps. And once I got the glossiness and roughness of everything done, the rest of texturing kind of went fast and was basically a breeze. One thing I want to point out was the blood surrounding the mouth of the Nen fish, which kind of insinuates that the Nen fish had been eating recently, and I couldn't show the dude who was being eaten or K-worded, but if you look closely you can see him against the wall in some of the shots. My last challenge with these fish was getting them to dissolve when the window was opened. If you haven't seen the anime yet, they can only exist indoors, so when the window's open, they just kind of disappear. In order to craft the look of the disintegration, I started with the fish's texture itself disappearing, with a lot of glow and sharp noise near the edges to really show how the pieces were being broken off. The next thing I did was create a particle simulation of the pieces shooting off of the actual fish, but I had to do a lot of test simulations to get a feel that was similar to the original shot, while also making sure the particles had nice smooth movement to them. So I've actually been working on this project for about 2 or 3 months now. Initially, I was constantly struggling with this video. Everything seemed to just be going wrong randomly and I couldn't seem to catch a break. But my friends Diego and Brandon gave me tons of advice which helped me grow a lot as an artist during this process. And I'm really proud of how everything turned out in the end. So without further ado, the final video.
Personally, I believe we have a soul. See, that's the reason I wanted to fulfill my dead friend's wish. It's what he would have wanted. To wreak havoc. Forever set, a precious moon is lost. The others mourn him with ceremony grand. Rising up to heaven, the mighty moon of frost, with a melody from the morning band. Well, Uvo, can you hear it? We dedicate this requiem to you.